At the back of the Lockwood Gardens at Hazelwood Village, there is a bee apiary. In this video, we're going to learn all about it.
Beekeeper apprentice.
Okay. What are we doing?
So today in the Hazelwood apiary, we are going to be inspecting the 2 colonies of bees that we just introduced to the community in Hazelwood Village. And this is something that we do on a regular basis to maintain the bees and look for and observe what's going on in the hive so that we can tell when we need to start switching from helping them with the brood or the babies towards more of the honey production as we proceed into the summer months.
This is a smoker, and what's it like? What is it doing for the bees?
Well, the smoker kind of replicates what they're experiencing in the forest or in nature, and so it calms them down. It also confuses them just a little bit because this way, with the smoke in the air, they can't smell the queen's pheromones quite as strongly, so they're not as defensive or protective. And so it helps us get a little bit more time with the bees to do our inspection today, and it helps calm them down a little bit. The smoker I started it with pine needles, and I put a pine cone and a little wooden shim in there. And we'll just keep that smoke going. This is just a bellows to make sure that it's got enough air so it keeps going. Oh my goodness, they have so much pollen. So much, Shonna. The bees that are flying around the front of the hive have these little baskets called pollen baskets, and they're loaded with these little yellow balls. They look like tiny styrofoam balls, but they're pollen that they're bringing in from the flowers in our neighborhood.
Let's take a look. Oh my gosh, look at that.
All of these bees that are flying around the front of the hive are waiting to get to the front door so they can transfer the pollen to the other bees that will take it inside into the colony. They're all coming back already from their first forage. Yeah.
You've opened it up. Why are we doing this? What is happening with this colony?
So these tabs that you see right here are just treating for mites, which can kill bees. So just know if when you see these tabs, that's what those are. But in general, what we're trying to accomplish today is we always want to just inspect and see how they're doing, see how the queen is laying her eggs, seeing if there's larvae, if there's eggs, where the honey is. There's also royal jelly. There's resources, which are food that they keep to feed the larvae. So we're just trying to get our eyes on everything to kind of see where they're at. When we started out, there was only one box. So these are called a brood box. And we only started out with one. And then what happens is she starts in the middle laying her eggs, and then she starts filling up each one of these frames. And then as these frames get filled out with eggs and larvae, and the others are feeding them with the pollen that they bring in, then as soon as there's like 1 to 1.5 frames that are empty, then we add another box on top so she can keep growing the colony. And so we're just trying to, if we can, get our eyes every time on the queen, just see how she's doing, make sure she's still there. Once these are both filled out, then we can decide whether or not we're going to put another brood box on, or we could split it into another colony.
So once the brood boxes are full and everything's looking healthy, we're going to pivot after June, and we're going to start with the honey production. So we have a queen excluder that goes on top of here. It's kind of like their little apartment or their flat is built up from the bottom up. And so when we transition into more honey production season, we'll put this on. That's the queen excluder. So the worker bees can fit through those little slats, but the queen can't go up through it to lay eggs. So
she's a little too fat.
She's a little too fat. She has too many eggs in there yet, so she needs to stay on the bottom 2 floors, and the workers can go up to the pantry or the kitchen.
One of the really interesting things is you had just saw all of these bees coming in with pollen baskets, and the color that we're all used to when we think of pollen is like yellow or maybe orangish, but really what it is it's dependent upon what is blooming at the time in our subdivision. So as lilacs and blue hydrangea and all that, it'll start being purple, it'll be red. It's really dependent upon whatever pollen they're picking up from what's blooming. This one is not very filled out as far as you can see up here where there's black, and then it's a little bit white. So they're starting to fill that out. And this is one of the very end ones. So they're just starting to fill that out. But as we keep looking, you'll see the difference, because this white turns is going to be yellow, and it's like literally the same height as the rest of the board. And I see no eggs or larvae on here whatsoever.
Okay.
So we're gonna put this one. Oops, sorry guys. We're gonna put this one.
Oh, this is like a rack of some sort you've got hanging out the side.
It just gives us room to be able to pull up the next frame. So when I move it around a little bit, you might be able to see how there's liquid in there in some of those, and see how it's a little bit more filled out, a little bit like higher towards the frame.
Like is that the honeycomb? Is the honeycomb building up? Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's called drawn comb.
Oh yeah, I can totally see the definition of that.
Isn't that cool?
And the glossy stuff is the honey.
Right.
Okay.
And they're getting ready so that the queen will be able to lay eggs in each of those little cells or combs. And those are what will become the next generation of bees that will live only for 40 days or so. Right over here, you can see a little white C-shaped worm in each of those honeycomb cells.
Oh, I see it. Yeah. Let's get down a little further. It doesn't get blurry. There's a little C-shape. Oh, totally see that.
Yeah. And they haven't capped that. That's why we can see into those. But I can show you some examples when we see them of capped brood like this. You can see that some of them have holes that you can see into and others don't. It's smooth on the top. And those capped ones, they're kind of incubating and getting ready to emerge as full-blown worker bees. So the bottom part is capped honey, and then the rest of it, the yellower color, that's capped brood, ready to emerge as new bees in the next couple of days.
I noticed the colors changing. We have like down here in the corner white capping, and then it's yellow capping, and the yellow capping is more mature. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the white capping is honey that's capped, but the yellow is capped brood. Those are bees that are ready to emerge from their cocoons, if you will.
Let's see if we can get our eyes on Missy Ma'am, the queen.
Right, because you're in the center of the hive now.
There's a big old drone. So the drones are the boy bees, and they don't have stingers. And so sometimes those are nice to show, kids that about bees and introduce some of the educational aspects of it, because it's relatively safer. The drones, we shouldn't have too many by population, the ratio of workers to drones. We should just have a few. But they don't really contribute to the production in any way or helping the larva. Their sole purpose in life is to pregnate the queen. So she may have eggs from multiple drones, and then they die. So.
Oh, did the drones die right after mating?
Yep, in flight. Yep.
They know us. They get used to our smell, and so they're kind of, they know that we feed them. They know that we're taking care of them, but they only want us to handle them for a certain period of time, and then they kind of don't want us to be here anymore.
Right, so the middle is packed, and then the outside edges aren't quite as full. But once those start filling up, like Shonna said, we're going to have to do something so that they have enough room to do their business.
Oh yeah, look, hardly anything there.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they'll want to go find another home.
Yeah, even though we didn't see the queen in this brood box, we know that she's in there because there's fresh larvae and eggs that she's been laying in the last couple of days. And so we can rest assured that everything below that is fine, because we've been doing our regular inspections every week, and we don't necessarily need to invade their space down there just to see them. So what we're going to do is go ahead and put a feeder. This is where we feed sugar syrup to the bees to augment what they're already getting from the neighborhood water, ponds, bird baths, you name it. So this is a sugar syrup, kind of like what you would feed your hummingbirds. in the spring like this, it's a 1-to-1 mix, and you would be surprised how much those girls drink. They drink probably 3 or 4 gallons a week. So we're going to eventually wean these bees off. That's probably the last time that we're going to feed them sugar syrup for the spring, because it really does water down the honey a bit, and it also introduces moisture into the hive. So as the season goes on and there's more nectar and pollen and water available, we're going to let them forage for themselves. The bees can go up from the bottom, and you can see a little bit of burr comb there. We'll scrape that off, but they can't actually get into the sugar syrup because they would drown, but they can drink through this screen.
On this side, when I took this off, this up here, this is called burr comb, and there's some over here as well on the bottom side of this. So we just scrape it off, and what this is used for is beeswax. So you probably know, you've heard of like all kinds of things that beeswax, things that are beeswax are made from. So we just scrape that off so that everything stays in the frame. So that's what's sticky that can be difficult for us, and that's why sometimes we have to use a tool to get in between these.
You won't regret going with Sovanett.